Good evening, everyone. My apologies for the technical difficulties earlier. We tried to do the Zoom session at 6 o'clock this evening, and network here in my area was experiencing some difficulties, so I had trouble connecting. And when I was able to, had some serious lag in the video feed. So again, my apologies for that. It seems like it's been a Monday all week long, so especially with the holiday week. So wanted to spend a little time. This is week 3. We started module 2. Week 3, I'm sorry, module 2 will pretty much take us through the remainder of this course. We have a couple modules. So getting into our actual assessments. So week 3 focuses on informal assessments. And so basically informal assessment is exactly what its title is. It's some form of assessing a student, gauging what their knowledge level is, perhaps after you taught specific objectives in classroom, and it's a quick, easy assessment to kind of gauge the student's understanding to help you as a classroom instructor know if you need to make some adjustments or go back and perhaps reteach some specific objectives. So when we look at informal assessment, and if you look in your, I'm going to share a slide deck for week 3, and so I'm not showing all of it. I'm really focusing on the last half of this specific slide deck because it really pertains to 2 separate assignments, but it's listed as curriculum-based measures or measurements and informal assessment. I'm going to focus on the last half of the slide deck, starting around slide 19 or 20, all the way through slide 30, where it really specifically talks about informal assessment. Informal assessment can be a variety of things. It can be something that is teacher made. It can be something that is created in various ways, whether it can include some of the items that's listed here. It could be matching items, could be a multiple choice, could be short essay or short response. Uh, could be some completion items, true, false, interpretive exercises. Also, when we look at informal assessment, these are some very simplistic methods of doing it. Also could include some checklist, simple observation, could be a portfolio that you build for each student in which you're taking work collections, work samples, putting them in the student portfolio, or you can go back and do a quick review and continually add to that. Could also include rating scales, could be some time samplings, could be also be some anecdotal records that we use. So something ultimately that is very easy, simple, and quick to administer. Something that just really you can do in just as easy as a couple minutes. Some other informal methods of assessment include error analysis, task analysis, what we call direct measurement, CBA, curriculum-based assessment. We could use some criterion-related assessments. I mentioned checklists, questionnaires, also maybe some short interview with students. If we focus on, excuse me, looking at reading, what can we do for reading that's considered an informal assessment? Well, there's 3 areas to focus on that we could look at, anywhere from simple decoding, informal assessments, assessing students' fluency, the rate at which they read orally, and also analyzing the number of mistakes made in a short passage, and then also comprehension, ability to determine meaning from content, and being able to go back and tell us what exactly is the content trying to tell us or the information is trying to relate. Just some guidelines for doing informal assessment for reading. If possible, you can do inventories that mostly provide a narrative. Also, maybe writing or taking a passage, have them go in and do a short read on that and then give back some information to determine if they truly have basic understanding. Informal assessments with spelling. You want to check and see how your students are doing with when you're going over maybe spelling list or teaching spelling. One way is just simply just an old-fashioned practice spelling test where you say perhaps or you say the word, student uses it in a sentence. or you say the word and you analyze errors, whether it's the phonetic ability or some visualization or linguistic performance. You can also do informal assessment in writing with writing exercises. You can take written work samples. That's one way to do it. Also, some other informal assessment techniques is perhaps maybe providing a story starter, where you give them the first part of the story and the student has a set amount of time where they are to be creative and develop the second half of the story. That's one way to do it. You could also go back and um, assess their creative writing along with that, but also within their writing in that passage. You could also go back and analyze and determine correct use of vocabulary words, maybe some spelling words you've been studying that week, and you want them to incorporate that into that story uh, starter that you give them. Use some of their vocab words for the week and embed those in that story or the second half of the story that they create. So that's another way to do it. Performance assessment in different types. So it's performance related. Basically, the student's response from his or her existing knowledge, the knowledge base around a specific topic or subject. Stresses the nature of the task the student undertakes in demonstrating knowledge and just provide an explanation for their answer. So that's basically you're asking them to perform some type of task. You look at authentic assessment, students must apply that knowledge in a manner that considers generalizing into a real world setting. Okay, so being able to apply that knowledge in a natural, real world setting. Okay, there's ways to evaluate performance tasks if we're going to ask them to perform something. Okay, you can require the student to access prior knowledge in completing a task. You could make sure it's real, purposeful, and embedded in something, another subject area activity, so that it seems more authentic. You can engage students' interest when you're asking them to perform the task to show their knowledge. It's also by doing this, it conveys a sense of fairness to all, being free of any bias. It also challenges students without frustrating them because they're actually getting up and actually performing that task. They're getting up and getting to demonstrate. Next item we're going to look at is portfolio assessment. I mentioned you are collecting work samples for each student and creating that to document progress. So basically, you're collecting samples of work over a period of time. So this can be very authentic and valid. It encompasses the whole child. You're able to look at just the whole picture, not just necessarily one type of assessment. You're getting to see some of their work samples and being able to use and apply that knowledge. Also, you can have repeated observations, various patterns of behavior. That'll give you another idea, a way to assess a student, and it can be continuous over a period of time. This could be ongoing, something that you are documenting throughout the week, different points and times of the day, just to kind of gauge that student's behavior. Also, with portfolio, it is a way to provide systemic feedback, which can be used for improving instruction and student performance. And so, as a classroom instructor, you're actually able to go through and look at multiple work samples, determine how the student is performing by the product that they are producing for you based on the tasks that you give. Also, it provides an opportunity for collaboration or joint conversations and explanations between students and their peers or students and you as a teacher. Also, you're able to provide all these work samples and the information you collected, share to parents, or also students can share to parents because they get more of a sense of ownership in that and take more of an active role. Some examples of portfolio assessments could be samples of student writing, could be story maps, could be a reading log with a dated list of books that the students read. Perhaps you want to keep an ongoing running log throughout the course of the year. Could be a vocabulary journal that they keep throughout the year on new words and meanings that are introduced to them. Could be artwork, project papers, photographs and other products of work that's completed. It could be work samples from group work, projects, could be a daily journal, writing ideas that they come up with, perhaps that they would want to use at a later date and time. Also, you could include letters to pen pals to kind of gauge the use of mechanics in their writing and their writing skills. You could also keep letters that are exchanged with the teacher. Is another work sample, and then out of school writing or artwork that might be done. And then you could also include some unit lesson tests that are collected over a grading period, like a 9-week period or even a semester, or even throughout the academic year, and show progress from point A at the beginning of the year all the way through point B at the end of the year and everything in between. Okay, we're getting into this slide here, doesn't necessarily really pertain to informal assessment, starting to talk a little bit about norm reference. So, which we'll get into that in our next form of assessment. But if I go through and share this in this particular slide deck, it talks about informal methods of assessment. Okay, so there's really a wide variety of tools that you can use to meet the guidelines for this assignment that's coming up. Also in the course shell, there is a tab there, and it's titled ABCs of Informal Assessment. And so it is linked to a website literally that will provide you an example of informal assessments, one for each letter of the alphabet. So you're getting a wide variety of examples just from this one website. So if you're struggling to come up with this, with the assessments to use for this assignment, going to that website is an excellent tool to use for that. Also, remember the assignment asks you to use more than one informal assessment. I believe it asks you to use a total of 3 different informal assessments to kind of gauge the student's behavior or gauge their performance, whether it's in the area of reading or math or spelling or writing, whichever area that you choose to gauge the skill set of your particular case study student or your student that you're working with throughout this particular class. Another thing I want to share with you quickly, I'm going to switch over to the syllabus quickly to share down on the point structure for this particular assignment so you have an idea what we're looking for. Remember, now everything you're doing is going to be individual based. So if you go into your course syllabus, starting at the bottom of page 11, you'll see the rubric and point system that's allotted for this assignment. So the very first category in the body of the paper is the section for identifying information. Information related to the test, specific assessments, informal assessments. So you want to make sure that you're identifying the name of each informal assessment, particular dates that it was administered, just a brief description of the skills that are being measured in each test. What was the purpose of it? Just a brief description. What was your purpose of administering the informal assessments? Why did you select those particular informal assessments? Really, there's no right or wrong answer on that. Just basically explain why you chose a particular method of informal assessment, whether it was a checklist, an observation, time sampling. We have a wide variety. The next section within the body of the paper is the background. Again, these sections will be included in every report that you write for the 3 assessments we're going to look at. So our second area is background. We're going to provide a background, a little bit of background on the student. Remember, in the reports, we're going to use pseudonyms, okay? For the student, you could use the student's initials or fake names. Just do not use the real name of the student that you are working with. Make sure you include their age. If they have a suspected disability or already identified, include that. Also, the school level of the student. Are they currently in 3rd grade? Are they a freshman in high school? Okay. Also, we want to include a little bit of background information, just a little bit academic information, maybe some past performance, some how they've done in the past, any behavioral issues they might have had, or any teacher observation information you want to include in that. Also, pertinent family information. Include a little bit about the student's background. Are they single parent home being raised by mom? Are they being raised by grandparents as a student in foster care? Just a little bit about the family background and then any other relevant background information, just so you can kind of paint or provide an overall idea about the background of the student. The next section that we're going to address is the test results and interpretation section. So if you look at the point breakdown for the assignments, whether it's the informal assessment, whether it's the norm reference that we'll focus on next, or the CBM, the test interpretation section or portion of the report that you're going to be doing is weighted the heaviest out of all the sections, okay? Because we're having to go in and provide a little bit more detailed information. Also, we're going to be asking you to do something that a lot of you may not be as comfortable with, but we're going to kind of learn how to do it this year or this class. And that is providing some of the data that you collect and displaying it in a visual format, whether it's in the form of a table, a chart, or a graph. So basically, you're going to take the data you collected and put it into a table form, chart form, or graph form and embed it into this report within this section. So starting off this section, we're just going to ask you to kind of provide an explicit analysis of your results, including the data you collected, and then taking that information and displaying it in a visual representation. So we want you to present it in a table, chart, or graph that's labeled. And then right under that, we're going to have you give a written explanation of the data that you have selected to put in that visual representation. Okay. So you can see already the first three items in that test results and interpretation section. You have one item that's weighted at 20 points, putting the tables, charts, and graphs in that are labeled 6, and then providing an explanation of the data that's in that table, chart, or graph. Also, based on this assessment, the informal, identify or highlight what you found to be a strength of the student. And then also you're going to highlight what you felt was a weakness based on the results you collected and your observation during that time. Okay. After we do that, we're going to drop down and create another section. It's called the recommendation and conclusion. So we're asking you to highlight some instructional planning recommendations based on the results that you collected and gleaned from administering the informal assessment. So these recommendations could include any type of specific instructional method that you think should be utilized with your student. Also, should content be modified? Maybe grade level modification. Do we need to change it? Do you see that if the student's in 5th grade and he or she is not performing well, perhaps maybe we need to drop it down to a 4th grade level and maybe re-administer to see how they do there. So those are some ways, some instructional planning recommendations. And then just kind of provide just a brief overall summary of their performance based on your observation of this during the administration of the assessment. So that will be paper. Now, organization mechanics is looking for ideas presented in a coherent, cohesive manner, making sure your paper is formatted according to APA, looking for basic spelling, grammar, sentence structure. And then one thing you need to make sure you do is submit a copy of the the permission form template. So make sure you use the template that's in the 805 resources section in the course shell, have that parent sign, and then include it when you submit your report. Also with this, there is a template, a lesson plan template. We're asking you to go and complete that. It is in a Word form document, and just basically go through and develop a lesson plan. So a lot of the prompts are on that format, that template that we provide you. And we're asking you to come up with a lesson plan for the student now that you have given it an informal assessment, see how they are. So if it's for fifth grade math and it's focusing on multiplication or decimals, you're going and you see they perform poorly, you're going to take that information. We're going to develop a lesson as if you were going to go back and reteach those concepts or those objectives to try to improve the student's knowledge of that skill. And so that will also be included. So you'll have the report. In addition to the report, you should turn in a copy of the permission form that's signed, and then also include the lesson plan with your information that you have plugged in based on the information you collected during the administration of the informal assessment. So again, I wanted to also let you know in the course shell, there is an example of an informal assessment report that was done by a student in previous courses, many semesters ago, that I used to kind of give you an outline of what the report looks like, how to lay it out, the format of it. And so it says example of informal assessment report. So it's there for you to guide you. Also, it will show example of the type of table, chart, or graph that the student used to display the data in visual representation for the parents. So one of the reasons we ask you or challenge you to do that and embed it in your report is to learn how to do that. So when you're sitting down with a parent and going over assessment results that you have conducted in your classroom, as you're giving them the information verbally in narrative format, you can also lay down a table, a chart, or graph. And sometimes it really helps that parent connect the dots on the information you're providing to them when they see it in some form of visual representation. It really helps a lot when they can see it, and it really helps them gain a better understanding when they see those results, when we can show them the data and visually represent that to help them truly understand. So again, that copy of that report is in there. If you have trouble locating it, or if you see it and still are having some uneasiness about how to lay that out, please email me. Be glad to connect with you one-on-one on the Zoom to kind of go over that, answer any questions you have. Also, I can be available tomorrow evening, which will be Thursday, September the 5th. We're going to not keep our fingers crossed that hopefully won't experience the same type of problem with network stability. I think that was a lot of it. That was the message I kept getting tonight before we tried to start. So luckily I was able to get this recording in. So I will be available tomorrow at 6. If you want to hop on, you have questions, or if I can provide clarification, be glad to do that at that time. So keep that in mind. It's not required. You won't miss out on any points or anything like that. So it's just simply to help provide some time that I'm available due to kind of the crazy schedule this week and having to move our nights, and then with the technical difficulties. So just an opportunity for us to connect if you need it. With that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and end this. And remember, I'll be available tomorrow. If you can't make that, you have questions, please feel free to email. Thank you.